March 1944. The Atlantic Ocean has become a graveyard for a German naval power. After 4 years of submarine warfare, the Allies have fundamentally transformed their tactics. Where once German U-boats dominated the waters between America and Britain, they now hunt under constant threat from coordinated air and surface patrols. The technological and tactical advantage has shifted decisively. U-66 represents one of the last successful German ocean raiders of her class, the IXC, designed for long-range operations. Under the command of Captain Gerhard Seehausen, she has sunk 36 vessels, sending over 200,000 tons of cargo and ships to the bottom. By any measure, U-66 is among the most effective submarines in the Kriegsmarine. Yet in spring 1944, even her success cannot overcome systemic vulnerabilities. The critical problem is logistics. German submarines operate on extended patrols lasting months, and their survival depends entirely on a network of supply vessels, specialized tankers, and cargo ships positioned at agreed coordinates across the Atlantic. Without these rendezvous points, no U-boat can maintain fuel reserves, repair damaged equipment, or resupply ammunition and provisions. Seehausen knows this intimately. His engines burn diesel at a prodigious rate, his torpedoes are nearly expended, and his dive valves, corroded from months at sea, now stick and leak. Repair parts are critical. The supply meeting scheduled for early March near West Africa is not optional, it is survival. Meanwhile, USS Buckley, a newly commissioned destroyer escort of the Cannon class, represents the Allies' new doctrine. She is one of hundreds built specifically for anti-submarine warfare, equipped with the latest centimetric radar, sonar arrays, and rapid-fire weapons designed to prosecute surface action against submarines forced to fight on the open sea. Buckley's commanding officer, Lieutenant Commander Brent Abel, has integrated air-sea coordination into his operational routine. When Block Island, the escort carrier commanding the task group, reports a submarine sighting near U-66's expected location, Abel receives detailed coordinates. He does not race blindly toward an unknown target. Instead, he positions his ship to intercept while maintaining radar silence, allowing aircraft to maintain surveillance and maintain the element of surprise. This coordinated approach, once impossible for scattered Allied forces, has now become standard doctrine. By early morning on March 5, 1944, two vessels are converging on the same patch of ocean for radically different reasons. U-66 surfaces to await salvation. USS Buckley approaches to deliver destruction. Neither captain yet knows the other exists, but the machinery of Allied war, radar, radio, aircraft coordination, and tactical procedure has already determined the outcome. At dawn on March 5, U-66 surfaces at the designated rendezvous point. The sea is calm, visibility clear, conditions that would normally favor a submerged approach, but Seehausen has no choice. His batteries are depleted from the night transit, and the diesel engines must run on the surface to recharge them. This is not a decision born of confidence. It is born of necessity. The submarine's log records growing technical problems. The dive valves, mechanical devices that control water intake and exhaust during submersion, have corroded from months of saltwater exposure. They now stick and leak, meaning that any attempt to dive quickly will take longer than the standard 30 seconds. With faulty valves, submersion might require 15 minutes or more. For a U-boat in enemy waters, 15 minutes is an eternity. The crew of 45 men huddle below deck or maintain watch on the conning tower. They are experienced sailors, veterans of multiple patrols, but fatigue and the knowledge of their situation weigh heavily. Fuel reserves are low enough that the return voyage to occupied France or the Reich depends entirely on this supply rendezvous. If the meeting is missed, if the tanker is delayed or sunk, there is no backup plan. The open Atlantic offers no alternatives. Seehausen stations lookouts and orders passive sonar listening, The hydrophone operator tracks any distant sound of propellers or machinery. The wireless remains silent. Radio transmissions can betray position to allied direction-finding equipment. Waiting is the only option. Somewhere on the horizon, the supply ship should appear within hours. Instead, what appears is a dark shape against the sky. An American TBM-1C Avenger torpedo bomber, piloted by Lieutenant Jimmy J. Sellers. The aircraft is part of Block Island's standard patrol pattern, sweeping designated sectors for enemy contacts. Sellers scans the water methodically, knowing that a surface submarine appears as a small dark silhouette against the lighter sea surface. When Sellers spots U-66, the identification is immediate to a trained eye, to angular, to deliberate, to metallic, to be anything but a warship. He reduces altitude and confirms the contact visually. The submarine does not attempt to dive. This is the critical moment. U-66's captain faces an immediate decision. Submersion with faulty valves might succeed, but it might also fail, leaving the boat crippled and helpless. Remaining surfaced means the aircraft can relay coordinates, summoning surface vessels. Seehausen chooses the dangerous gamble. Stay on the surface, maintain lookout for the supply ship, and hope that the approaching danger can be evaded or fought. Sellers, in his cockpit, makes his own calculation. He does not attack immediately. Instead, he maintains distance, broadcasts the contact report to USS Buckley 20 miles distant, and continues observation. The submarine, unaware of how thoroughly it has been compromised, maintains its search pattern. It is trapped between two impossible choices, and the Allies control both. When USS Buckley receives Sellers' transmission, Lieutenant Commander Abel has already positioned his ship for optimal radar coverage. The destroyer escort is equipped with a Mark IV fire control radar, capable of detecting a surface submarine at ranges exceeding 15,000 yards, nearly 9 miles. More importantly, the radar provides precise bearing and distance, allowing Abel to calculate an intercept course without visual contact. Abel orders flank speed, the maximum sustainable velocity that does not risk engine damage. At 23 knots, the destroyer escort cuts through the Atlantic swells, leaving a white wake visible 4 miles. Speed is now essential. Every minute of delay allows U-66 to move, to attempt submersion despite faulty valves, or to maneuver toward deeper water, where the hunt becomes exponentially harder. The tactical advantage belongs entirely to the Americans. Buckley approaches under conditions of near-total information superiority. Aircraft overhead providing real-time position reports, radar guiding the ship, and radio coordination tying the entire effort into a single coherent operation. For the first time in the Atlantic War, the hunter possesses overwhelming technological and tactical advantage. The submarine, designed for stealth and submerged combat, is about to be forced into a surface engagement, precisely the scenario it was designed to avoid. As Buckley closes the distance, Abel faces a tactical choice. He could open fire at maximum radar range, attempting to damage the submarine before it can react or dive. Instead, he holds fire. The reason is calculation, not mercy. At maximum range, accuracy is poor. Rounds fired from 14,000 yards will likely miss in the Atlantic swells. More importantly, premature firing alerts the target and sacrifices surprise. Abel intends to close to ranges where his guns, the twin 20mm mounts, 40mm Bofors, and 3-inch deck gun, will achieve overwhelming hit probability. Seehausen, aboard U-66, receives increasingly alarming reports from his lookouts. A ship has been sighted on the horizon, bearing and distance still uncertain in the grey dawn light. The lookout cannot identify the vessel type. Seehausen orders heightened vigilance. Is it neutral, an escort, a warship? The hydrophone operator begins detecting increasing sound, propeller cavitation growing louder, indicating a rapidly approaching vessel at high speed. The submarine captain now faces the critical choice that will determine the next hours. Submersion with the faulty dive valves is risky, but offers concealment. Remaining on the surface allows continued search for the supply ship or readiness to fight if necessary. Seehausen has commanded U-66 through multiple successful patrols. He has survived previous close encounters with Allied warships. Confidence in his crew and his boat's resilience, both earned through experience, leads him to order battle stations. He will fight. Able closes to 8,000 yards. Visibility is now adequate for accurate gun control. The moon, sitting low on the western horizon, casts its reflected light across the water, creating conditions the Americans exploit and the Germans cannot counter. In the pale illumination, U-66 becomes visible not as a clear silhouette, but as a dark shape that only experienced eyes can distinguish from the surrounding sea. Able makes his final decision. He orders a hard turn to port, positioning Buckley to bring all her guns to bear while maintaining maximum visibility advantage. The helmsman responds instantly. The destroyer escort wheels around, its superstructure groaning under the strain of high-speed maneuvering, and moves into attack position. On U-66, German sailors see the American warship resolve from the darkness into unmistakable form. The moment for concealment has passed. War is now inevitable. At 06:02 hours, USS Buckley opens fire. The 20mm and 40mm guns erupt first, their lighter rounds capable of rapid rate of fire. Seconds later, the 3-inch main gun joins the barrage. Tracer rounds streak across the water, creating brilliant lines of fire in the dawnlight. The noise is overwhelming, a sustained roar of muzzle blasts that echoes across the Atlantic. U-66's gun crews respond with remarkable speed. Despite the chaos and incoming fire, German sailors man the submarine's twin 20mm AEONs mounted on the conning tower. These weapons are designed primarily for defense against aircraft, but in this moment they become the boat's primary offensive system. German gunners begin returning fire, their shells streaking toward the American destroyer escort. The technical disparity becomes immediately apparent. Buckley's gunners are trained in surface combat, their fire control systems refined through months of anti-submarine operations. The Americans maintain steady rates of fire, the 20mm guns capable of delivering hundreds of rounds per minute. The 40mm Bofors approximately 160 rounds per minute. More critically, the Americans achieve accurate fire. Round after round slam into U-66's conning tower, the forecastle, and the deck. German return fire is rapid, but ineffective. The submarine's gun crews lack training in surface anti-ship combat. Their weapons are designed for air defense. In the chaotic lighting conditions, with the American destroyer maneuvering at high speed and presenting a difficult target, German gunners consistently aim high. Shell after shell passes over Buckley without striking. The few rounds that do strike the destroyer inflict minor damage. One shell punctures the smokestack, but nothing that impairs her combat effectiveness. Seehausen, commanding from the conning tower, orders evasive maneuvers. The submarine's diesel engines provide limited maneuverability compared to a destroyer. U-66 can achieve perhaps 90 knots in optimal conditions. Buckley, unencumbered by the need to remain submerged, can sustain 23 knots or higher. Attempts to outrun the American are futile. Attempts to maneuver sharply expose different angles of the submarine's hull to incoming fire. After approximately 10 minutes of surface gun action, U-66's situation deteriorates catastrophically. The twin 20mm guns fall silent as their crews are killed or wounded by machine gun fire. The deck is swept by American tracers, and the few German sailors remaining topside cannot mount effective resistance. The submarine's forecastle is cratered and torn by repeated 3-inch hits. Fires begin spreading across the deck. Able observes the submarine's deteriorating condition through binoculars. The German vessel is clearly losing combat effectiveness. Guns are silent, movement sluggish, fires burning uncontrolled. However, Able knows U-66 still possesses one weapon of supreme lethality: the torpedo tubes. A single well-placed 21-inch torpedo can sink Buckley despite her superior firepower. He must not allow the Germans time to organize a counterattack. Able orders his helmsman to prepare for ramming. Below decks in U-66, the damage control parties struggle against cascading failures. Water seeps through new ruptures in the hull. Electrical systems spark and fail. Despite the chaos, Seehausen's last recourse remains available: the torpedo tubes. The submarine carries 21-inch torpedoes, weapons of devastating power, capable of striking a destroyer escort with sufficient force to break her keel and send her to the bottom. Seehausen orders the stern torpedo tubes prepared. These aft-facing weapons point directly away from U-66's stern, positioned to strike a pursuing vessel. It is a desperate measure. Firing torpedoes from a damaged, maneuvering submarine dramatically reduces accuracy, but it remains U-66's only offensive capability. The torpedo crew, working in compartments filling with seawater and smoke, manually load and prepare the weapons. The first torpedo launches from the stern tube are approximately 0633 hours. The weapon streaks toward USS Buckley, leaving a visible wake of bubbles and propeller wash. Aboard Buckley, the sonar operator detects the incoming threat and immediately reports: torpedo starboard bow. Able reacts with the practiced response and of a trained anti-submarine commander. He orders the helmsman to turn hard to starboard, a maneuver that presents the narrowest possible profile to the incoming weapon. The destroyer escort wheels sharply, her hull groaning under the violent turn. Buckley's crew braces against the violent motion. The torpedo passes harmlessly by the starboard side, missing the destroyer by an estimated 30 to 40 feet. Seconds later, a second torpedo launches from U-66, fired in desperation, with even less hope of success. This weapon, too, misses, its trajectory and timing defeated by Buckley's superior maneuverability. The failure of the torpedo attack marks the psychological moment of U-66's defeat. Seehausen realizes his boat has expended its last offensive capability. The submarine's surface guns are destroyed. The torpedo attack has failed. The faulty dive valves prevent rapid submersion. The submarine, once a hunter prowling the Atlantic's vastness, has been reduced to a crippled, immobilized target. Seehausen recognizes the inevitable. He orders the crew to prepare for abandonment. German sailors gather life jackets and prepare to abandon ship, expecting the American destroyer to close in and deliver the final blow. Some men are already in the water, swimming away from the doomed submarine, when Able makes his final decision. Rather than waste ammunition and time on additional gunfire, Able orders flank speed toward the submarine. The destroyer escort's bow points directly at U-66's hull. The helmsman responds to the command without hesitation. Buckley accelerates, her massive steel hull bearing down on the crippled submarine at high speed. The collision is inevitable and, from the German perspective, completely unexpected. A warship ramming another warship is rare in modern naval warfare. Submarines are expected to sink or escape, not to be struck by ramming. The impact occurs at approximately 0640 hours. Buckley's steel bow strikes U-66 amidships with tremendous force. The submarine's hull buckles and tears, compartments flood instantly. U-66 is mortally wounded, though she remains partially afloat, wedged against Buckley's starboard side. For a moment, the two vessels are locked together, American steel pressed against German hull. The collision sends shockwaves through both vessels. Aboard USS Buckley, the impact throws men to the deck, but the destroyer escort's steel hull remains intact. Aboard U-66, compartments flood catastrophically. The submarine's structural integrity, compromised by months at sea and already weakened by gunfire, cannot withstand the ramming. Water pours through fractured seams. What occurs next is extraordinary. a moment so rare in 20th century naval warfare that it has few historical precedents. As Buckley's hull presses against U-66's side, German sailors who have abandoned ship find themselves trapped in an unexpected situation. Rather than sinking immediately as expected, U-66 remains partially afloat, wedged against the American destroyer. Some German sailors, having jumped into the water or prepared to abandon ship, now find themselves in direct contact with the enemy vessel. In the chaos and confusion, approximately a dozen German sailors manage to climb onto Buckley's deck. Their intentions are unclear. Some may be attempting to surrender, others to board and fight, still others simply disoriented and seeking any solid surface. Regardless of intent, Abel recognizes the immediate danger. A boarding action by even a small number of armed enemy sailors poses a genuine threat to his crew. Abel issues an order that has not been given by an American naval officer in over a century: stand by to repel boarders. It is an archaic command, evoking Age of Sail naval warfare, yet in this moment it is operationally necessary. Buckley's crew responds with trained discipline. American sailors emerge on deck armed with pistols, rifles, and submachine guns. The firefight that erupts is short-range and brutal. The Germans, lacking cover on Buckley's open deck and facing disciplined American sailors who possess superior positioning and firepower, are quickly overwhelmed. Several German sailors fall. Others attempt to retreat, either back toward U-66 or over the side into the water. In the confusion, American sailors use whatever comes to hand: spent shell casings, portions of ammunition, even hot coffee from the galley, as improvised weapons. The violence is close quarters and personal. The deck action lasts only minutes before Abel recognizes the danger of remaining locked against the submarine. U-66 is sinking rapidly, and prolonged contact risks Buckley becoming entangled with the dying vessel. Abel orders the engines to full reverse. The destroyer escorts propellers, bite into the water, driving the ship backward. The grinding noise of steel on steel fills the air as Buckley slides astern across U-66's hull. German sailors clinging to the railing between the two vessels face a desperate choice. Remaining aboard Buckley means capture. Remaining aboard U-66 means sinking into the Atlantic. Some jump back toward the submarine. Others attempt to remain aboard Buckley. In the confusion, a grenade, either thrown by an American sailor or detonated accidentally, explodes near the contact point. The explosion accelerates U-66's final collapse. Within minutes, U-66's stern rises vertically as the boat's bow sinks beneath the waves. The submarine slides beneath the surface at approximately 0650 hours, approximately 10 minutes after the ramming impact. Men struggling in the water cry out, reaching for flotsam and life rafts. The battle that began in the grey dawn light ends in chaos and death. In the hours following U-66's sinking, USS Buckley circled the wreckage, conducting rescue operations. American sailors pulled survivors from the water, 36 German sailors in total, approximately 58% of the submarine's 62-man crew. The survivors, exhausted and traumatized, were brought aboard and secured below decks as prisoners of war. Among the missing was Captain Gerhard Seehausen, last seen on the conning tower as the submarine went under. He was 26 years old. USS Buckley herself sustained damage from the ramming and the sustained gunfire engagement. The collision with U-66's hull had ruptured some of Buckley's forward compartments, and the ship took on water. However, the damage control parties worked effectively to contain the flooding. The destroyer escort's engineering spaces remained functional, and she maintained full propulsion. Buckley departed the area under her own power, escorting her prisoners toward the nearest American base. The engagement between USS Buckley and U-66 lasted approximately 30 minutes, from initial radar contact to the submarine's final submersion. In that half hour, the technological, tactical, and human dimensions of the Atlantic War crystallized into a single decisive action. The battle demonstrated multiple critical factors that had shifted the war decisively against German submarines by spring 1944. First was technological superiority. Buckley's radar allowed detection and approach under conditions of near-total darkness. American fire control systems, refined through years of gunnery practice, delivered accurate rapid fire that German gunners, trained primarily for air defense, could not match. American sonar detected the incoming torpedoes, allowing evasive maneuvers that German submariners, working with limited targeting data, could not anticipate. Second was tactical coordination. The engagement was not an isolated action by a single destroyer escort. USS Buckley operated as part of an integrated system, including aircraft surveillance, radio communication, and coordinated task group operations. Lieutenant Jimmy Sellers' aircraft provided continuous surveillance and targeting updates. This integration of air and surface assets, once impossible for scattered Allied forces, had become routine. Third was the decline of the German submarine as a viable offensive weapon. U-66, despite her successful combat record, faced mechanical limitations, faulty dive valves, fuel shortages, dependence on supply systems that the Allies had systematically destroyed or interdicted. The submarine that had once roamed freely across the Atlantic, hunted in constant fear, dependent on rendezvous with fragile supply vessels that themselves were vulnerable to Allied air patrols. Lieutenant Commander Brent Abel received the Navy Cross for his leadership and tactical decision-making during the engagement. The citation specifically recognized his effective use of moonlight and radar, his coordination of ship movements, and his decisive action in ramming and destroying the enemy vessel. Abel survived the war and later rose to flag rank, serving into the 1960s. The 36 survivors of U-66 spent the remainder of the war as prisoners in American camps. They were interrogated, processed, and eventually repatriated after Germany's surrender in May 1945. Most survived the war, their lives spared by capture rather than lost in the Atlantic's cold waters. The loss of U-66 was one of hundreds of submarine losses that marked the final phase of the Battle of the Atlantic. By mid-1944, German submarine losses had become unsustainable. New construction could not replace losses. Experienced crews, trained over months and years, were killed faster than replacements could be prepared. The tactics and technology that had made the U-boat a dominant weapon in 1940–1942 had been systematically neutralized. March 5, 1944, and the engagement between USS Buckley and U-66 represents a pivotal moment in this transition. The ramming action, so unusual that it recalled naval combat from the Age of Sail, symbolized the complete inversion of Atlantic naval warfare. Submarines, once hunters operating under the shield of darkness and depth, had become hunted, forced to surface and fight in daylight against enemies with superior firepower and tactical advantage. The age of the German U-boat as an offensive weapon had effectively ended.